If I must starve, let it be in your arms. By Ignium 807. Chapter 3. The drowners take half an hour to wipe out. A couple swipes of his sword, a few muffled curses, and the beasts are dead at his feet, a threat to the nearby town no more. Lambert sits on the side of the river for a while, letting his clothes dry. Jaskier is playing in the village square when he returns. There is sunlight in his hair, bouncing off his lute strings. It shines out from his eyes when he smiles. "Lambert!" Jaskier calls, and Lambert is moving before he can think of a reason not to. An impromptu crowd has formed around Jaskier's feet. He's sitting on a bench that looks like it was dragged there specifically for him, and people lounge on the stones in front of him, laughing at the words to the song he's playing. A few of them shy away from Lambert as he approaches. It's fine, he's used to that reaction. Lambert settles beside the bench and tilts his head back to listen. Jaskier is a full-body performer. He dances as he sings, slapping his feet against the cobblestones and swaying his hips. Every word he sings is clearly pronounced with a snap on the consonants to make the lyrics clear, though the tiniest hint of an accent still leaks through, especially on some of the slower folk songs. Requests come from the crowd when the final note of each tune comes to a close. Jaskier is straying away from the dirtier songs, ever conscious of the kids playing around them, but he takes any request that's clean and happy. He plays and grins, and by the time a few more songs pass by, enough courage has built in Lambert's chest for him to speak up. "How about the Bear and the Maiden Fair?" The crowd falls silent when they hear his voice, and for a moment Lambert is worried that he ruined the magic of it all. Then a woman from the back of the group shouts, "I know that one!" And Jaskier jumps right back into his playing with no more than a wink of acknowledgement thrown in Lambert's direction. They while away an hour in the square, Jaskier in his element and Lambert surprisingly less uncomfortable than he usually is with crowds. Perhaps because none of the people's attention stays on him for long. They're all too drunk on music and sunshine to fear the witcher in their midst. Eventually, the morning melts away, and Jaskier reminds them all to stop by the inn that evening if they want more. It's sure to be a full house. With the people gone, Jaskier aims the full force of his attention at Lambert. "You took care of that pretty quick," he says brightly. "I'm impressed." Maybe it's the music or the warmth of the day, but Lambert grows bold. He tosses his hair back and smirks. "I'm just that good." Jaskier snorts at him, but it's a fine sound. He reaches down to offer his hand, drawing Lambert's attention to the fact that he's still stretched out on the ground at Jaskier's feet. He takes the offered hand with a nod of thanks, and Jaskier hauls him to his feet. All Lambert's muscle is heavy on its own, never mind the armor and weaponry weighing him down. It's a show of strength that the bard brushes past without noticing the look of pleased surprise that spreads across Lambert's face. Instead of dropping Lambert's hand as soon as he's on his feet, Jaskier holds it for a second, then runs his hand up Lambert's bicep to drape his arm over Lambert's shoulder. It's casual, familiar. It sets Lambert's head spinning. Jaskier guides him by the shoulder with ease, and Lambert follows along on heavy feet, too distracted to focus on where they're going. "Come on, O great witcher, slayer of the drowners, protector of the town!" Jaskier squeezes his shoulder and bumps their hips together. "Let me buy you lunch." Jaskier guides them to a bakery that's bustling with the midday rush. It's a simple place. The people here don't have money for much more than sandwiches, but the tables inside look crowded. Lambert knows there will be sounds and smells louder and stronger than he usually prefers. He decides not to let it bother him. Clean, easy kills like this one are too rare, and he won't let his enhanced senses get in the way of his celebration. The woman behind the counter smiles at Jaskier as he flips her a coin. She slides him 2 hunks of bread, a plate of cured meat, and 2 mugs of ale. Lambert thinks he sees her blush when they stride out the door again. Jaskier plops down on the side of the building facing the square and sets the food down next to him. Lambert stands next to him dumbly until he raises an eyebrow and says, "Sit." Lambert sits. "Why aren't we eating inside?" Jaskier shrugs and sidles over until his leg is pressed against Lambert's. "Too loud." Lambert is about to ask how exactly a small-town bakery is louder than the performances Jaskier is used to, but he doesn't manage to say anything before Jaskier launches into a long-winded story about his time at Oxenfurt. It's probably better not to ask anyway. He would rather listen and bask in the warmth of Jaskier's leg against his own. After lunch, Lambert makes his way to the house of the local lord. He's owed payment for the drowners, simple as they were, and he wants to ask about the rumors of a griffin that the innkeeper mentioned.
"That beast!"
the lord exclaims when Lambert asks.
"Been terrifying my people for months now, it has. I don't suppose you could take care of that for me, Master Witcher?"
Lambert informs him that yes, of course he can, and yes, it will cost extra. There's a world of difference between a griffin and a couple of drowners. But the town is desperate, the coffers are full, and they part ways having settled on a contract. Despite neglecting payment for the few days he'll need to track the thing and plan for the hunt, it's one of the most generous contracts that Lambert has been offered recently. The inn is full that night. Word spread quickly that a bard was in town, and the White Wolf's bard no less. Lambert was lucky he grabbed a seat before people still flooded in, or he would have missed the show. Jaskier plays long and well. He starts light, eventually working his way into the bawdier songs, quick, dirty tunes about beautiful women and their heaving bosoms. More than a few of the ladies in the audience tug flirtatiously at the edge of Jaskier's doublet as he passes through the crowd. He just sends them a smile and continues the set. By the time the night is over, Lambert is well fed, warm with ale, and too strung out to focus on anything besides Jaskier's hands on his lute and the painful thought of sharing a bed again without being able to close the distance between them. He doesn't know if it's relief or some kind of new exquisite torture when Jaskier finishes his performance, slides over to Lambert's table, and walks them up the stairs. His hand is firm and hot on Lambert's shoulder the whole way up. The satisfaction of a show gone well settles deep into Jaskier's bones as he heads to his room with Lambert. It's the high of his passion for music combined with adoration from the crowd. A heady mix! But he needs his wits about him for tonight. He knows all too well how skittish witchers can get, especially when they are offered something that they feel guilty for wanting so desperately. Jaskier is determined to blow past Lambert's defenses before he even realizes it's happened. Jaskier closes the door quietly behind him and sets his lute down beside it. Normally, he would be chattering away about the performance or pestering Lambert with questions about some monster or another. Not tonight. Tonight he shrugs off his clothes until he's standing in nothing but his breeches and an undershirt. He turns to Lambert, who has just managed to get his boots off, and tugs at one of the straps holding his shoulder piece in place. The Witcher freezes at his touch, but does not move away. That's enough for Jaskier. "Why do you wear this all the time, anyway?" he asks, knowing Lambert needs something to focus on. Geralt always did, especially the first few times Jaskier helped him undress. There is something remarkably intimate about removing someone else's armor. He's proven right when Lambert answers him in a voice noticeably rougher than it was the minute before. "It's for protection." "Yes, obviously." Jaskier finishes with the shoulder pieces and begins working on the various laces and buckles that keep the chest plate in place. "But why not take it off when you're done fighting? I think silk is far more comfortable to lounge in than all this leather." "Witchers don't do much lounging." With the upper body armor removed, Jaskier rests his chin on Lambert's shoulder and lets the Witcher fumble off the heavy padding below his waist. "Pity. Lounging is the best activity in the world, darling." He doesn't miss the shiver that runs through Lambert at the endearment. "Preferably with lots of wine and naked women." Lambert makes a choked sound, clears his throat and says, "Thought you and Geralt were exclusive." "We are," he chuckles. "Doesn't mean I can't enjoy the view." Jaskier leans back a little, but stays close enough that he knows Lambert can still feel the warmth of his body. He was amazed so many years ago to discover how sensitive Geralt's skin was to temperature and touch, and everything else, really. They spent a long, enthusiastic week in bed when Geralt finally worked up enough words to explain that Witcher sensitivity extends beyond scent and sound. Movements slow and certain, Jaskier pulls his shirt over his head, tosses it lightly to one corner of the room, and heads off the question in Lambert's eyes before he can ask it. "Don't tell me you sleep fully clothed all the time, because that would be a tragedy." Jaskier tugs lightly on the edges of the undershirt that Lambert is still wearing before scooting back away against the pillows at the head of the bed. There is a brief moment of hesitation, a mere trembling of fingers, before Lambert pulls his shirt off as well. "That won't do at Jaskier needs him relaxed for this. He needs him too focused on the comfort of embrace to let shame rear its ugly head. It would be easier to avoid fully clothed, Jaskier knows, but he also knows that skin-to-skin contact is infinitely more satisfying than having 2 layers of cloth between them. He hopes that Lambert's own uncertainty and self-flagellation will hold off long enough for Jaskier to get his arms around him. There won't be any room for thought after that, he's sure. Not with the way Lambert was watching him all day. Not when Jaskier knows, somewhere deep inside him, that no one has touched Lambert in years without him paying them first. Finally, Lambert leans back. He's drawn up taut as whipcord, but they can fix that. Jaskier blows out the candle on his bedside table, plunging the room into darkness. He ignores the fact that witchers can see quite well in the dark. This is about tone, and he needs to strike just the right chord to have any hope of wiping some of that awful tension out of Lambert's body. It looks painful. Jaskier tosses a blanket over them both. Too much space between them still. Lambert is facing away from him, his breathing so even and regular that Jaskier knows he's controlling it on purpose. He thinks briefly about not pushing the issue, but memories flood back of the terror written into every line of Geralt's body the first few times they got this close. Fear of rejection, of hatred, fear that Jaskier would offer him something so beautiful and snatch it away at the last second, laughing at the poor pathetic witcher in his bed. It took Jaskier too long to figure it out the first time. He read Geralt's fear as reluctance, as rejection, and held himself back from true intimacy for weeks. Now Jaskier has a better understanding of the ridiculous, twisted thought processes that witchers have when it comes to their own needs. He won't make the same mistake twice. Jaskier rolls over so his chest is inches from Lambert's back. He reaches out. He closes the distance. A broken noise works its way out of Lambert's throat when Jaskier's arms wrap around him. The witcher can't help from pressing backward, trying to get as much contact as possible, but part of him screams to pull away before Jaskier can. Before he realizes what the scars on Lambert's skin mean. Before the smell of fear starts leaking off of him like it should, like it always does with humans. His breath is coming too fast. Jaskier squeezes tighter and drags his knuckles over Lambert's stomach, feeling the muscles jump. He lays his palm flat when Lambert sucks in a ragged breath. "You don't have to," Lambert whispers, and it's a tiny, miserable little sentence. Jaskier hates it. He hates every single person who has ever made Lambert feel like he needs to say such a thing.
"I want to,"
he says. And again, "I want to." Because Geralt didn't believe him the first time either. "Jaskier," he cuts Lambert off with a gentle press of lips to the nape of his neck. That wrenches a groan out of the witcher in his arms, and Jaskier pulls them closer. He makes sure Lambert can feel the ghost of his breath as he says, "I choose this, of my own free will." Lambert is shaking freely now, his entire frame shuddering. "I want to hold you tonight and tomorrow night, if you'll let me." He drops a kiss to the place where Lambert's neck meets his shoulder, pitches his voice low. "Will you let me?" Lambert comes alive under his hands. He spins around in the bed, eyes wild, and buries his face in Jaskier's neck. They're chest to chest now, skin pressed as close as it can get. Lambert's arms wrap around Jaskier, and Jaskier tangles their legs together under the blanket. His own arms are strong and sure where they hold Lambert against him. Breath comes out in hot puffs against Jaskier's throat from where Lambert is losing control. Helpless little sounds fall out of him, muffled whimpers and groans as he tries to hold himself together. Jaskier welcomes it. He slides a hand into Lambert's long hair and tugs lightly, smiling at the punched-out moan he gets in return. The noises will quiet, Jaskier knows, as Lambert relaxes. The last of the tension will fall from his shoulders. His breathing will slow, and he will tumble over into the kind of sleep that only comes with safety. Minutes or hours, it doesn't matter. Jaskier will hold him until he wakes.